days until the presidential election. The nephew of the Republican candidate is breaking his long silence in a new memoir, All in the Family, The Trumps and How We Got This Way. Please welcome Fred Trump.
So, welcome to the show.
Thank
nice
you.
to have you here.
Thank you.
There have been countless books written about your uncle all over the place. I mean, even your sister Mary, who's your younger sister, she came here to talk about her tell-all book back in 2020. Now, you have stated that, and you have stayed quiet. You have not opened up about this at all until this book came out.
Right.
So, what made you decide to come out about it now?
The ladies of The View are so excited they barely can contain themselves. And why? Because they get to talk about their favorite person, Donald Trump, right? Like, you know, these girls, these women, that's all they do is like every day they slander Donald Trump. When I say slander, like, you know, you can have a criticism of somebody, right? For sure. But they go into it where it's like, attacking his character. They act like they know him, but this time they get a better, you know, shot at doing this because they have a premium person here, a Trump family member who is going to assist them in the slander. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Well, first of all, it's my story,
Right.
told in a way. I'm really the only one that was with Donald during his formative years, through his business career and through his time in the
Mary
White
was
House. No, I mean, I was close with Donald. He was the first guy who put a golf club in my hand.
I see.
But All in the Family was really to honor my father, Freddie, Donald's older brother, who was a caring, charismatic guy. And my son, William, a child with complex disabilities, who is the most courageous and inspirational person I have ever met. And he opened the door for me to advocate on behalf of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. To tell their story, I needed to tell the story of the Trump family.
Right.
I don't know what that means. Now, first of all, shout out to him and his son. You know, that is not easy to have a child with developmental disabilities and everything. So, you know, I pray for their family and that everything, it looks like they're, you know, hopefully everything will be okay with that. I mean, obviously this child is older, so, but God bless them, right? Because that is not easy at all. But why did you need to tell this story first? Just say, you know, I'd rather a person say, instead of saying some silliness like that, like, well, I, you know, this is actually for my dad and my son, but before I could tell their story, I had to tell this story. No, just be like, listen, this story, this is for my dad and my son, and I want to be honorable by telling the truth instead of making excuses for my uncle. Like, say something like that. But the rest of it was just extra. It really was.
Complex, sometimes cruel. You know, every family is complicated. Every family has their crazy uncle at the Thanksgiving table. Donald's atomic crazy. And I've seen it firsthand how he's evolved from crazy to atomic crazy.
Wow.
And I was thinking recently, I wish I had come out earlier with this book, because the outpouring of people saying what we are doing to help the disabled has been overwhelming. So I wish I had done that instead of what we did was important, but
Well, you did it.
When it was the right time.
I still, again, like, I don't know. Am I being mean? Because, like, I don't understand what he's saying here. Why? He wish he would have wrote the book about Donald first, because what they're doing to help the disabled. I mean, that's great that you're helping disabled people. Again, I'm really happy for you that you're doing things like this. But at the same time, it's just really weird to me that you keep going back there to tell all about Donald Trump. By the way, guys, if you like these videos, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. We'll be starting to go back live again soon. We're really starting to push out again the episodes. I won't talk about it too much, but going with a new feel with this channel, talking about literally everything across the board. The inconvenient truth is what we do, guys. Thank you for watching, and let's get back into it. It's just kind of weird to me, like, to promote the goodness, you got to talk about the bad. I don't know.
You got there.
Yeah.
But your late father, Fred Trump Jr., was the eldest of Donald Trump's siblings. He passed away in his early 40s due to complications from alcoholism. Since this is the first time Americans are really hearing from you, you mentioned that your uncle was the first one to put a golf club in your head. How close were you?
Oh, it was very close. Yeah. He was my trustee when my father passed away. That didn't work out so well, but
Well, you can't trust him. That's why.
Right. He took your inheritance.
see what
away.
I did? I let you in on it.
You did.
But no, we were close. Whenever I would call him, even when he was in the Oval Office, he would answer. He'd leave me messages for me and my family on New Year's Eve. Hi, this is your favorite president calling, wishing all. So we were close.
But you call yourself a different kind of Trump, which sounds a little more like maybe your dad.
Oh, I'm definitely like my father. There's no doubt. The good and the bad.
Yeah.
Dad, again, was a very caring guy who unfortunately wanted to live a dream and was crushed by his father, my grandfather, with Donald piling on. And that was tragic because if Dad saw what I was trying to do now, he would have been the biggest fan of it.
Yeah.
He would have been out there.
But
with
Gramps
me.
wouldn't have been.
No.
Well, and I want to kind of ask about that.
So, it's funny. Like, listen, I didn't read this man's book or anything, right? I've half read a book Bill O'Reilly wrote about Donald Trump where he interviewed Trump for the book. Trump barely wanted to do the interview, okay? I kind of was like reading it more listening to it because I don't know, I just found it interesting at the time or whatever, right? But I have this weird thing where I don't expect to meet these people. Donald Trump is a character or like a personality, a figure that I feel like people go too far with on both sides, right? Let me be devil's advocate for a second. You'll have people on the right that will make him like he's Jesus on the cross. Now, we all have our cross to bear, okay? So when somebody says a certain thing like, when they're saying a certain thing like, we're being persecuted or something like that, as a Christian, you do have your cross to bear. But like, it's almost like, well, we need Trump back in and he's going to fix everything. I don't particularly think it's going to work like that. I don't. I think that the people need to take accountability for what's been going on lately in our country. And then that's what's going to fix everything. But I don't think it's, one of those things where it's like, oh, well, we need Trump back and he's going to just wave a magic wand. So I think on that side, it's like there's people who aren't really realizing the reality of the situation. But on the other side, it's like they do this thing where they're like, oh, he's just a bad guy. He is the worst guy ever. They compare him to the H guy, all of it, right? And it's like, well, how do you know? Like, what is it? Like, it's weird because I can find footage of these same women, but particularly Joy and Whoopi, who were glomming all over Trump when he came to The View before. So why it's weird. It's like, oh, well, he piled on my dad and my grandfather this. I've heard that Trump's father was hardcore and did not play any games, but that generation back then, that's how they were. They didn't play. They were very focused people, unlike today, right? So what are we doing here? It's just, it's a waste of time to me. But anyway, it's a salacious book. He's going to make the money. It is what it is.
That you spent a lot of time analyzing your uncle in the book, and you say that this bombastic political force he became, you attribute that to a lot of your family dysfunction. You say your family put the fun in dysfunction. Is the Donald Trump you grew up with the same man you see now? And how did his family influence this figure that we now know him as?
He was always driven. Always driven. In fact, people have said, this story is kind of like a Succession story, the television show. I said, no, in that, all three of the siblings wanted to take over from the father. My dad didn't want that. My dad's dream was to become an airline pilot, which he did. Donald and my grandfather disparaged him for that. In fact, Donald called him a glorified bus driver.
Wow.
So,
Jealous.
well, I'd like to see Donald, or maybe I wouldn't like to see Donald fly a plane.
No.
But you see, even that kind of a comment, like I really was not going to cut it off, but I had to again. This type of behavior, again, is like, oh, he called my dad a glorified bus driver. All right, maybe that wasn't nice, right? That wasn't nice. But this is how it was back in the day. I mean, that's probably something my dad would have said to me. Or to my brother, if like we had this like big empire, and then my brother was like, well, I just want to fly planes. yeah, a person can do whatever they want. They should just want to fly planes. Like, I'm not mad at somebody who just wants to fly planes. My father would have been like, what are you just trying to drive a bus in the air? He would have said the same thing. I don't think that this is the weirdest thing to me. Like, I don't. It's like, oh, he was just jealous. Even he couldn't agree with the fact that he was jealous. This is a problem.
But Donald was always a driven guy, hated to lose. So when he's called a loser, that drives him nuts.
Oh, that's
be-
good
It's
information.
going to be
Thank
rough
you.
in September for him.
November.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough for him in
I mean,
November.
November. I meant.
Let me ask you this, because back in the 70s when you were a preteen, you write about hearing your uncle Donald Trump use the worst racial slur twice while ranting to you about his car being damaged. And you're not the first person to claim that Donald Trump trafficked in this kind of language, right? Though he continues to deny it. Do you have any doubt that you heard that slur?
I was there. I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever.
Before we get into the slur, because he's going to tell the story, and oh my God, Donald Trump might have used the N-word. Wow, I'm pretty sure everybody at the table has used it before. Now, I want you to watch this man's mannerisms when he talks. No disrespect, but y'all know on his channel, I am very, nurse assessment. Don't care. This is what I do, right? And I just feel like he might have had issues or something with substances in the past. It's great that he doesn't anymore, but I just feel like that. And so, I just kind of want to put that out there, and I'll explain why after.
Twice he used the N-word. Now, to put it into context, and what troubles me even more than that is that he did not know who slashed the roof of his Eldorado.
He assumed.
He assumed.
Yeah.
Was the
That
That's
is
the
the
more revealing
yeah.
part.
And interesting, Sonny, about the same time, I had a bike stolen. I grew up in Jamaica. We all grew up in Jamaica, Queens. Me in Jamaica, them and my grandparents and Donald, my father, in Jamaica States. Regardless, I had a bike stolen by 3 black kids. And unfortunately, my dad wasn't around at the time. So the police called and said, we found your bike. My mom asked Donald if he could go to the police station with me.
Yeah.
And they had this kid. And I remember he was my age. And Donald he absolutely wanted to see this kid put in jail. And as wise as I possibly could be at 10 years old, I said, I don't want to ruin this kid's life. Just
Yeah.
think of what that's going to do to this kid.
He didn't
I got the bike back. I'm fine with it. Flash forward 17 years later, Central Park 5.
Yeah.
Wow.
5 kids who were found, were exonerated.
Yeah.
He screamed out for the death penalty in a full-page ad.
Okay, so everybody calm down, right? Like, this story, I can't stand when people tell it. I really can't. Number one, okay, so like I said, this guy's mannerisms, like, obviously I can't find anything about him having to be on drugs, right? And I'm not saying, again, that he needed to be on drugs, right? I'm not saying that, like, off the bat, like, oh, just because he's talking like this, he was an alcoholic or whatever. I just feel like he's been through hard times, okay? I can tell by the way the nerves move and everything else. It is what it is. That means to me, nobody's perfect. Now, he sits here and he tells this story about Donald Trump might have used the N-word because he thought a black person damaged his car. But he used it before he realized who damaged it. Do we ever get to find out who really damaged the car, though? And I'm not saying that you should use the N-word. I'm saying that, like, I'm pretty sure Fred Trump's used the N-word, too. What are we writing a book about? Number 2, that Central Park 5 thing, dig this. He put out that ad before they were exonerated. It wasn't after. And black people were asking for literally the same thing. Everybody was divided on this issue, what happened back in the 80s in Central Park. The way that girl was beat to a bloody pulp, people were thinking whoever y'all catch for this should get the death penalty. Okay, that's just how they felt. It is what it is, right? Maybe later on in hindsight, okay. But if that's how somebody felt at that time, then okay, right? Now, and there's still black people who wonder about that whole case. Yes. But anyway, what does this have to do with the presidential elections? Like, what are we doing here? Right now, I feel like you could definitely come for Trump. Like, these people, this is all theater. Let's have his nephew here to come talk about Donald Trump. And maybe he had, a colorful vocabulary, right? Like, that's the best you got. No, not his foreign policy and the fact that, he's been hinting to go to war with Iran, and maybe Americans don't want to go to war. This is like, there's nobody who touches on that. Nobody who does. I would give The View way more credit if they would have at least touched on that. Instead, it's always the same thing. Donald Trump is racist. Donald Trump is racist. Who cares? And it's like, for me, I feel like they always have to keep Black people in a state where they have to worry about who's racist and who's not. I won't live my life like this. Like, before I make a decision, I need to know how racist on the racist meter. What does this do for the American people? It does nothing. But again, it's just like all a big theater, and it's really ridiculous. But thank you for watching. I'll see you guys at the next one. Bye.